Welcome everybody, it's Unstoppable Stiletsy again, and I still got Sandy of Cthulhu here with me to do episode 2 of our series. This episode will focus on the current state of Age of Empires 3 and Sandy's thoughts on how it is right now. So I got a bunch of different cool things to not only ask him, but show him as well, so this will be pretty interesting. And if a lot of you watch my content on my YouTube, you'll probably know this stuff that I'm going to be doing with him right away, but he might not have seen these projects before, so it should be pretty interesting.
This is Sandy Petersen. I worked on every Age of Empire project and Age of Mythology and Halo Wars. Some I had a lot more to do with than others, but I was there on them all. So, do you have questions for me? Do you want me to answer to talk
Yes.
about random things?
Yep. Well, actually, the first one I was going to do with you, I actually have to share the screen with you to show you a few interesting things related to one of the projects that's being worked on in Definitive Edition 3. So now you can see my Definitive Edition 3 view, and I will share it with Sandy so he can follow along with us. Let me just make sure we put it to the right application. Hopefully it doesn't lag too much. There we go. Do you see my Age of Empires 3 copy?
Whoa, Age of Pirates. Sweet.
It's,
That was my arguments for there was a lot of discussion before we decided to do Age 3 at Ensemble. Oh, everyone knew that Age 2 was super fun. We had Vikings, we had Knights in Armor, we had Samurai. How can we make Age 3 fun? And so my argument was that, well, I mean, we have pirates and we have musketeers and mountain men and stuff, and people, except for the pirates, people weren't sure those were as cool. So it was an uphill battle. But we very nearly, instead of Age 3, went back to Age 1 and did that in 3D. I know I told you we were thinking of doing that after Age 3, but we also thought about doing it before Age 3. So looks like you're a pirate guy, so I guess we made the right decision for you.
yep, big time. Well, something I'm going to show you here is actually goes beyond just the pirates. It's actually a completely different concept, I think, for the Age series that we never ended up actually seeing it all. So basically on this map, and I'm going to use a few quick codes by the way to speed this up.
Oh man, you're taking me back here, dude. Just so that people know, well, I lived and breathed and did Age of Empires for over a decade of my life. When I left Ensemble, I went on to other things, and I pretty much haven't gone back and played Age of Empires much, except when my kids or grandkids had said, Grandpa, play Age of Empires with us. So I am not up on all the stuff that has happened since then. So you know far more about the current status than I do.
Yeah, I basically follow most of the mods too, so I know just about all the major projects that are currently being worked on, released, and everything, and I cover a lot of that stuff on my platform as well. So let me see where we are. So go around.
What's that boat?
This is the Akabune, one of the Japanese ships. I think it's their heavy ship where you can train units from, similar to the European galleon.
Okay, see, I haven't played any of the Japanese civs added, any of the Asian civs, because like I said, our big choice was we were going to do one expansion pack, and it was the War Chiefs. And I did that instead of, Japanese. By the way, have you seen the movie Admiral Roaring Currents
I believe so.
with the Admiral Yi Sun Sin against the Japanese?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, there's two more movies in that group that are also pretty exciting. I love seeing one of the things I really like about those series of movies, and it's relevant to this game, is that they really show how the Korean ships and tactics are utterly different from the Japanese. Not that one's better, it's just they're different. And, the Koreans in the end use their tactics more effectively because they have Admiral Sin, but you can see how the Japanese could have won those fights, and it makes it interesting. to have those civs be different. That was like one of the keys of Age. That was the big thing that in Age of Empires first one to distinguish it from World of Warcraft, because World of Warcraft the orcs and humans are essentially identical.
Oh yeah, most
And
definitely.
and so we were like, let's make them different, and our innovation. That was cool. Of course, they weren't as different as they got later on, but you know. Wait, how are you building all these late age things so quickly? Are you cheating?
Yep, I am, so we can move through super quickly.
Okay.
Yep, so the something I'm going to show you here is pretty interesting. So if we... This is the inventor's native site, by the way, so you can pick different inventors to give you very advanced weapons you normally wouldn't have in the game. So you can either go with Captain Nemo, Loveless, or
Whoa,
Frederick.
hey, those are real people.
Yep, they were, indeed. And each one comes with their own sort of weapon.
Dr. Loveless. Also, Dr. Loveless has to be a midget.
I'll let them know.
Do you know where Dr. Loveless is from?
Where is he from?
He is from the TV show The Wild Wild West. He's the villain inventor that is constantly trying to get the heroes, and he's like a little midget guy. He's a terrific villain, but an inventor. But he's absolutely the bad guy. So it's cool. So I saw him there. I was all excited. And Captain Nemo is, of course, from not Victor Hugo, Jules Verne's books.
Right. So from what we have here, we actually have a submarine that can actually submerge underground, under the water, and basically be able to dodge attacks pretty much, which is a pretty interesting concept.
Are those schools of fish? Yeah, we got rid of that from Captain Nemo, I assume. Are those schools of fish going around?
Oh yeah, you can fish these, but they move around, so your fishing boats sort of have to chase after them while they're gathering from them.
Yeah.
Same thing with the giant octopus here. And this is
I
the...
like the octopus. I want to see him. I don't notice him right off the bat. Oh, just that little guy? Okay,
Yep.
I see him.
Here we
I
go.
guess he's not that giant, but yeah. Here's a fun fact. So the birds in Age of Empires 3, we took the birds and when we put them down near the ground by humans, you can see they're giant pterodactyl things. So we had to keep them away from the humans. That was to make them visible of the appropriate size. But the birds are way out of scale. That's true in all the Age of Empires. So you have Captain Nemo with the underground city. So how does someone else that doesn't have subs do anything about this? Can they drop depth charts?
So basically, I believe your boats can target these scuba divers, and the scuba divers can actually use their harpoon guns to attack the naval vessels too, but it's usually not recommended to do because your range attack is so bare bones that clearly the ship will completely shred your divers pretty easily. And the point of building these is basically these scuba divers can go underground and actually... under the water, I mean, and basically gather all these materials under here. So we got rare minerals that look like this. This will give you your coin. You also have some ship wreckages here as well. If you swim out onto the water here, and that'll actually give you some wood like this wrecked fishing boat here as well. But the way that this works, which is pretty interesting, is your scuba divers will actually lose oxygen if they go too far away from the city. So if you like send them swimming through the area here like this, you'll notice that their hit points actually starts to dwindle, and you have to build another diving bell.
You can't send them on a raid against another place.
Right.
I noticed your sub just sank into the sand and vanished. Was it destroyed or was that a glitch?
It might have been a glitch, but yeah, basically the way that this map is set up, this is sort of like a elevated area, so your divers can actually swim right under here and then swim back up without any sort of issues at all, almost as if it was land.
Are the shipwrecks where you gather wood or something?
Yeah, one example would be, let me see, back to where I was. There was a fishing boat somewhere over here, this one, yep. So this is a shipwreck here, and you can have about 4 of the divers on there gathering wood from it. And it's an infinite source, by the way, so you can just keep doing that. infinitely. Same thing with these minerals. You can literally just have your miners sort of working away at this for the entire match as long as you keep them from getting basically destroyed by the enemy. So on maps like this in the mod, you not only have land-based warfare, you also have underwater-based warfare as well. And you can even have air-based warfare as well, because if I picked another one of these inventors here, one of their things is actually giving you the same Zeppelin that we have in Wars of Liberty that I mentioned before. So you could have water battles, sky battles, land battles, and then underwater battles all sort of going on at the same time on maps like this.
Can your scuba bin walk up onto the shore?
No, it cannot. It's sort of tethered to the water, like the boats are, pretty much.
So the minerals kind of threw me for a loop because they seem utterly science fictiony, like Starcraft. Like not there's not. I mean, those obviously don't exist in our world, right?
Right.
But I guess they just needed somewhere for minerals. So what are those minerals? Are they stone? I guess they aren't stone. Are they gold? I mean, what do they give you?
These give you gold, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a bit of fantasy and Easter egg based stuff in this mod too. There's actually an Assassin's Creed native site as well on some of the European maps, the House of Auditore that you can do. So there is some elements like that as well.
Yeah. One of the things on H3 we did is we wanted to have there be one less um, source of one less resource source. One less. Sorry, one less resource because we were adding fame, so we'd still have four. And so we took out stone, and man, we got so much hostility about taking out stone. And my argument was this: look, no civilization in the history of the Earth was ever stumped because they ran out of stone. You know, everyone has stone. They don't. It's not this thing that countries stockpile and put in. You know, it's just like, yeah, there's rocks, we can get them. Um, so so that was our choice, and people didn't like change, you know. But they learned to deal with it. I assume you did too. But that was kind of funny that they really thought stone was this valuable thing that nobody could ever get.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the surprising ones because you're worried about mostly gold in the game, and then you realize, oh man, I don't have any stone. I can't build a castle or a tower or another stone wall
Like I
to
said,
cover my.
historically, it's like, are there stone? I mean, if you live in a country without good quality stone, you might have, historically, I mean, you might have had a castle made of sandstone instead of granite, but it's, make it thicker. It's not a problem. You never run out of stone. People did have trouble with wood, and of course, gold was the critical resource that historical nations would run short of.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna try to basically set something up on this map. I stuck it into fast forward to see if it could come out a bit quicker. Basically, Age of Pirates also added these really interesting environmental aspects to certain maps, like this big giant volcano here that can actually erupt and go off basically after so many minutes, and obviously that's very bad for you and everybody around it because it's shooting all the ash into the air, all the fire, and basically not only your units but your buildings at the base of this volcano and within a certain vicinity will actually get completely destroyed by it after so many seconds. It's quite powerful.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how long it takes for this volcano to go off. Probably takes a few seconds to do, but once you see it, it's actually a really cool visual thing, the way that they designed it, and then they were able to do some particle-based visual stuff to make it look even more realistic, being underneath it, pretty much. And I believe this is one of the only maps where you can sort of just walk to the volcano. There's actually a volcano map where there's two volcanoes. There's one in the north and then there's one in the south, and they sort of go off within a cycle. The first one will go off first, and then the other one will go off a bit later. So basically your timing of where you're going to get your resources and establish your navy and stuff can make a huge difference sort of where you survive on there, because you could have this volcano that's peaceful for a very long time and then it's going to go off again, then you lose your whole base because of it. It's quite interesting. And there was, in fact, a migration map, too, that they ended up designing, where basically you start out on a piece of land and then the volcano's right there, so you're actually forced to actually migrate against your will, or else the volcano completely destroys you, so you actually have to leave at that point.
So does it have lava flows and stuff, or does it make a big explosion?
So it's kind of a mixture of things. So you see sort of fire spewing out from the sides there that lands and hits your buildings. You also see magma rolling down the volcano. You see huge ash and sulfur going into the air.
Yeah. Does magma travel across the map and like destroy things?
Oh yeah, it shoots out. I think it shoots out. If distance wise speaking, it shoots out to about. I would say probably about out to almost here. If you're out to here, the fire can hit you from all the way out there. And there's some maps where if you're on a boat that's in the water, the volcanic ash can even hit that offshore to a certain distance. So it's very dangerous environmental piece pretty much once you deal with it. I'm just trying to build some wonders right now just to showcase how impactful this volcano actually is. Once it goes off, it can do a lot of damage when it does. I think I'll put this one up here. I mean, I could probably build them back even further out and they'll still take some sort of impact from it. I think it'll probably go off by the time it hits probably the 10-minute mark usually. I think it was actually when they started coding the volcano that the Age of Pirates mod sort of became incompatible with Civ-based mods that were working with it before. Something about the volcano code sort of broke it and made it so that you had to do Age of Pirates sort of separately from a lot of the other mods that ended up adding civs and stuff. Because unlike the Legacy game where sort of Wars Liberty is now sort of the mainstream mod that everybody does, you have all sorts of mini projects in Definitive Edition. You got ones that add civs, ones that add maps, ones that add different custom skins. So you can actually mix and match different mods together to create something interesting, provided they don't interfere with each other.
I mean, this is certainly ambitious, to say the least.
Yeah, most definitely. And I believe they're going to add a bunch of other stuff going in the future as well, and this is just a small aspect of what they've added here. They also got natives they did for the Aboriginals, the Maori. I think the Maori are actually on this map, in fact, if you look, I believe they're somewhere around here, somewhere you can align with them. They got cowboys, yeah. So we're almost at the moment. I think it should go off any second, I hope. Maybe I'll try to put one more down here and see what... Yeah, I can't remember if the volcano cycles are always the same on the same map or if they're kind of randomized depending on which one. So I'll just keep fast forwarding it here and see what it does. In the meantime, though, I could ask some other stuff I have on my document here as well. So there was some community members that wanted to ask some stuff to you about the game. See if you want to touch on that. So there was, let me see what his name is, Tuxaza. I'm curious if there were any interested scrapped ideas or projects during the development of Age of Empires 3 and what reasons led to them not being adopted.
Well, yeah, there was tons of things. Like, for example, the very first idea we had for the expansion was to do Asians, but for better or worse, I fought for the natives, which I think that was the right call. But we could have had Asian. Oh, there it goes! Boom!
Yeah, took long enough. Now here comes the fun part. As you can see, look at these wonders. They're already almost destroyed right now. Again, completely swamped by this fire. One actually already disappeared. Yep, that one's gone. This one's almost gone.
There it goes.
And here comes the magma flowing down it.
So how much of the map is hit by those bombs?
It hits all the way to about here, right about this spot. All in a huge circumference.
It's like the central part.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. Yep, even his units got completely damaged from it, as you can tell. They're missing HP right now. So they definitely got really damaged by that. Yeah, I just wanted to show that portion, and then I'm going to open some other stuff as well that I got here. Let me just take this out of view so we go back to the main screen. In the meantime, I'll ask you another one that we got here as well from, let me see.
So one of the things that we were going to do in Age of Empires is that instead of winning the conventional way, the original plan was that we would earn what amounted to like victory points. I can't remember what we called them. Might have been glory. But like each age, you'd have things you did that got you glory. So that, you know, if you were the first to the second age, you got glory. If you had the most food income, you know, you got incremental glory over time. If you killed a whole bunch of guys at once or knocked out an enemy town center, you got glory. The idea was that was what would determine the victor. And we had that. We actually tested that for a while, and we just could not make it fun or balance it. So we gave up on it. So that was an early idea that we dropped. Is that the kind of thing you were curious about?
Yeah, I think that's the sort of stuff that they're wondering on.
Glory is still in the database somewhere, or even if it was, and I can't remember for sure it was called. But we had that. That was in the game for like 4 months. But the first 2 months of that, we didn't have it in the game. We just were planning to put it in. Then when it went in, it was disliked and, you know, went away. So that was one of the things. Let's see. We started out. What else did we change? A lot. Well, we started out without the creeps, and the creeps came about as a result of course, playing Warcraft 3, where they had the creeps on the map that you'd go kill. We were constantly stealing things from Blizzard, and I assume it may have happened in reverse. So, like, Age of Mythology was built as an attempt to mimic StarCraft's three really different alien civ thing, and then improve on it by Age of Mythology having 3 gods each time. And then Age of Empires 3, we didn't want to make it like StarCraft completely, but we wanted to have our civs be more different than in Age of Empires 2, which is actually one reason we had fewer civs. We didn't have it was harder to make Age of Empires 3 civs than it was to make Age of Empires 2 civs. Plus, we had to do the whole home. Oh, here's the thing that we changed that was thing. We were going to have the home city be like way different. Like you could click on characters in the home city and give them tasks, and see buildings go up and go down and change what they did and upgrade them. We had this whole home city game planned that eventually went away because it distracted from the main gameplay. But the home city was going to be this whole thing. It's already. I mean, I know it's already a whole thing, but it was going to be even more than it was. Like, see that guy waddling down, that guy in white? You click on him and you send him to go worship at the temple or go work in the town center, you know, or garden the thing, and that would all give you points that affected you in the real game. Kind of like we got some of that back when we introduced the fire pit for the Native Americans.
Right.
But that guy with the cart, he would be able to do things like if he set his cart outside of. I mean, we didn't have this civ in the game, obviously. I'm just using it as an example. Didn't have Armenians, but he would be able to take his cart somewhere and it would do something. It would other villagers would go and hang around the cart, and then that would boost whatever building they were in front of. In fact, at one time, you could zoom in and rotate around and explore the city, and that went away pretty fast because the artist said, "We're not going to do backdrops to these buildings. You only get the front view. We don't have time to do backs." And so that was, it's like if we had infinite time and infinite workers, it would have had those things.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
Definitely.
Actually, it's probably a good thing because like limits like that actually can way improve your uh, a game by focusing on what you need. You know what I mean?
Right. So this is the next thing I was going to show you. This is a mod called Age of the World that basically just focuses on adding new civilizations to the Definitive Edition game. So if you look here, you got Armenians, you got the Calusa in there, which is another Native American from around Florida. Got the Khmers, you got pirates, Charura, basically Argentinian native. Circle of Osis from the campaign. You got a few campaign civs in here. You got Egypt, Finnish. Finnish is the only normal European civ I think that they got. Georgians. Let me see what other ones we got. The Inuits, Jesuits. Knights of St. John is basically the multi-civ that you see in the campaign.
St. John were historically. It seems odd to have them be a whole nation, but I guess when you start getting these obscure nations, then you just have to go with what you know.
Oh,
Also,
yeah.
the Inuits seem like an odd choice. I guess the Inuits are cool. That the only time I can think of the Inuits actually posed like organized threat to another civilization was when they wiped out the Vikings in Greenland.
Yeah, basically. And the
I
way
mean,
that the way that they
they wiped out the Skraelings, but that was in the New World. The Skraelings were a group that now that was kind of lived between the Indians and the Inuits, and in the Little Ice Age, the Inuits came down and started fighting the Skraelings, and the Skraelings couldn't go down and fight the Indians. They were like a third group, and they eventually went extinct. I mean, they probably but the Skraelings are who the Vikings first met when they came to the New World
yeah.
and talked about. It wasn't actually conventional Indians. Then the Skraelings go away because of the Inuits, so that was kind of cool. I guess that counts.
Yeah.
But no one ever does Skraelings as a civ because
Yeah, the way that they designed them here is pretty interesting because they got the dog sleds as sort of like a chariot that is very tanky and can counter different units. Yep, you can make the Huskies.
that's crazy.
Even worse, you got the polar bear cavalry that they ended up adding as well.
Yeah, so it's just pure fantasy, I guess. So, I see. One of my goals. I have nothing against pure fantasy. I supported Age of Mythology. I do games based on Cthulhu, for Pete's sake, right? But in Age of Empires, I always wanted um, to have the game give the verisimilitude of history so that players playing it felt it was historical, even when I totally made up stuff like the Korean rocket car. I mean, it wasn't totally made up; it was mostly made up. I wanted people to feel it was historical not because I wanted them to. I think that feeling you're doing real historical things is more fun.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind
That
of
was my goal.
yeah, most definitely. Let me get the next thing up now. I'll give you another question you can answer in the meantime. Let me see if we got a good one here. Adri Bird asked, expanding the RTS niche in the current landscape, real-time strategy games, including Age of Empires, operate in a niche market in today's industry and are likely to remain so. From your perspective, what strategies approaches do you think the Age of Empires franchise should adopt to try to grow that niche and appeal to a broader audience without alienating its loyal player base?
Okay, here is what I can tell you what the Ensemble Studios' plan was after Age of Empires 3 and Halo Wars. We were going to do a completely different, a new RTS game. Instead of going on and doing more of the same stuff, we had two directions we were looking at going. We hadn't decided which way to go yet, but one direction was to do Age of Empires 4, which for us would have been basically from the American Civil War up through World War One. Okay? And possibly World War II. We weren't decided. If it had gone through World War II, it would have ended with a nuclear bomb. That would have been the wonder you'd get at the end. And then it'd be a whole different game. Instead of doing more of the same, it would be new. The other option we had was to go back to Age of Empires 1 and do it using the Bang engine and all the things we'd learned in working on Age 2 and Age 3 and Age of Mythology and Halo Wars, and have a really strong Age 1 experience. Except it wouldn't be a real Age 1, it would be, back to, back to the Stone Age kind of thing. We were talking about having Neanderthals even, and then working our way up to Rome, But we would, I guess, my approach would have been, instead of trying to constantly feast off the corpse of previous Age games, which is fun in its own way, doing completely new games with new things. And would that be better for Age of Empires? I don't know, but that's what we would have done.
Yeah, most definitely. So this is something I actually wanted to show you that's sort of like one of the newer sort of projects that's been done in the Age of Empires 3 game. Is not Wars of Liberty itself, but actually the new culture that they ended up adding to it. So if I go to, I don't know, I guess I'll do Kabul first. Let me see here. So what basically the Wars of Liberty team around December last year actually made real moves at adding a Middle East culture to Age of Empires 3, which is something that was talked about they were going to do back in 2015 actually. A decade later they actually ended up sort of doing it. So I just wanted to show you sort of some aspects of the culture and what you think of it, since it's sort of the most recent culture that Wars of Liberty has sort of added, and what you think of it, basically.
Well, I've mentioned that I haven't played a lot of Age of Empires since the company was murdered by Don Matrick back in 2009. I've gone back and only played when my kids got me to do it, so I don't know if my opinions are going to be very valuable about that.
Yeah, I'll just go through some basic stuff and see what you think of the design and so forth.
Sure. Let's have a look.
Yep. Alright, so basically the way Middle East works is you got this main structure called the Citadel.
About the Middle East. One of the things about the Middle East is that in the time period of Age of Empires 3, this is Age of Empires 3 we're talking about?
Yep, this is the original Legacy one, since Wars of Liberty was never able to port it over.
The Middle East was largely irrelevant. They were suppressed by the Ottomans, which I don't know if I count those as Middle East things. And they were like, this was not the time of their power. The Asians were strong. Europe was, of course, ruled the world. There were still African things, but the Middle East was kind of like not cool at this time. And that's just how it was. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just the Middle East kind of fell into eclipse. They made a brief comeback in the 1800s, when they had like a decades-long war between the Europeans and the Arabs for slaves in Africa. And that would be a cool game all by itself. And basically, the Europeans came in from the coasts to enslave blacks, and the Arabs came in through the interiors of Africa to enslave blacks. And when they met between the coast and the interior, then they would have wars. And that's a kind of an interesting period of history that is not talked about for some reason today. I guess because everyone feels so guilty about slavery, and they should. They didn't want to talk about this, but it was actually a pretty interesting thing. And then when the Europeans stopped taking slaves away from Africa, obviously they still like forced them to work on their plantations. Then the war was literally between non-slaves and slaves. It was interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I have to say about them.
Yeah, so design-wise here, the way that they end up working is instead of aging up normally, they actually have to research different technologies at the madrasa here between red technologies, which is sort of more militaristic related.
Show me an image because I'm not seeing one.
Oh, you have?
I do not. I only see your picture. That's not even
Oh,
you.
oh
It's
wait,
Straw.
wait a second. Let me give it to you. It's all right. We're not too far into it yet, so I'll just see what Discord's doing here. Very good. Yeah, that's something you always have to do. Unfortunately, with Discord, is you always have to keep sharing the screen again when you close a window, unless you do a full screen view. All right, here you go. Do you see everything good?
Watch stream. Yes.
Perfect. All right.
Ori,
That
Ori.
sound. Maybe we don't want the sound.
Yeah, for some reason the unit sound is still on there. Let me see if I can. Yeah, the OG game sometimes does that where you try to turn the sound is technically off, but you have to move the levers over still to. Now it should be good. All right. So basically, this is the madrasa here, and instead of doing your aging up at the TC structure, you actually do it here, and
Asa
you.
is a building that you're researching in. Is that correct?
Yep,
So it's not the town center.
yep, it's the madrasa.
So instead of researching H2 in the town center, you're researching it in the madrasa.
But it's a bit complicated. Instead of just one tech getting you to age two, the way it works is you have to research so many techs here at the madrasa, and they can be any of the techs at all within a certain number, and the number will determine when you age up. So if you research any three of these techs, then you can go to age two. If you research 7 techs total, then you can go to age three, and then age 4, I think it's like 10 or 12 or something. And then to go to age 5, you have to research them all. And you have different categories. You got,
Texas they have.
oh yeah, so you got the red category of techs on the left side here. These are mostly the militaristic ones. You got the economic ones, which are yellow. And then you have the blue ones, which are more building, infrastructure, civil related. And they come with a immediate reward, and then they have a bonus too that they apply. Like for instance, if you go with tribal dichotomy, the upfront effect is giving you one sort of a melee unit as well as another explorer. But what it does is your explorer build limit goes up, but they become weaker over time. So basically, you can either have one strong explorer at the start of the game, but as you keep going through the red text, then you'll just have a bunch of weak explorers instead of just one primary one. And for the Middle East in particular, they have something sort of similar to the war chief concept. So basically, your explorer here, which I believe would be called the Malik, has a favored unit, which you can tell right here, and he can train that unit in a later age, and then he also boosts their stats up. So his unit is the Jeselechi here, which is a sort of a skirmisher unit they get. So if you want to make the most of your unit there, you actually want to make sure that your explorer is sort of within the vicinity of them, and he'll effectively boost them up pretty much, which is good. And then when you age up here, you see all the graphics change. And then you actually have a bit of a different military setup than what's normal in Age of Empires 3. If you remember how AoE 3 worked, you had the barracks, the stable, and the artillery foundry. The way that Middle East handles it is you got the forge building here. The forge basically has all of your non-gunpowder weapons, so it has spearmen, swordsmen, lancers. It also has archers too, because the Uzbeks actually have an archer unit, and they'll show up at the forge. And then if you want to make gunpowder stuff like muskets, rifles, mounted or dismounted, you actually build the gunsmith to do that, and then you can make a Jeselechi, which is your skirmisher. You got the sarbaz, which is your standard musket. The Kodatspa is an Afghan sort of a dragoon, and then they have an ultimate unit here. This is another concept that Wars of Liberty did. So, sort of, if you remember correctly from Age of Empires 2, you had a castle and you made like a unique unit pretty much that was sort of your Civ's most special unit. What Wars of Liberty ended up doing was
My idea, by the way, the unique unit from the castle.
yeah, exactly, like the Tautog Knight of the Longbowmen, Mangudai.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm just taking credit for inventing it.
Oh yeah. Oh, you did? That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't invent every unit that came from the castle, but I was behind the idea. So
Yeah.
I thought it would make it cool. And then later on, we added the unique tech, so that was cool too.
Yep, that's good.
So one of the things I'm noticing here is that the method of leveling up at the madrasa, I think that's pretty cool. Because it's actually, although as you say, it's a little more complicated because you have to have 3, 7, or 9. The thing is, it's still actually really easy to understand. I just have to, and then the players, they can either just like unskillfully pick random bonuses and then go up if they just want to get up in a rush to pick the cheapest ones, I guess. Or they can like carefully plan it out ahead of time and be like the anal retentive, super skilled players. And I like that choice. And so I think I think that's cool. Just thought I'd say that.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure why there's an advantage over having a forge and a gunsmith over what the military buildings were in the other characters, but it seems like that might be just change for the sake of change. But the madrasa is brilliant.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And I could be wrong about the forge and the gunsmith. Maybe they are actually way cool, but
Now, this is another interesting concept that they ended up doing just for Middle East. They got something called the Royal Court here. And what the Royal Court does is you have different categories of allies that you can select per age. Basically, you can either pick a domestic leader or you can pick one of the foreign ones that you're allotted. In the case of Afghans, it would either be the British Raj or the Russians. And what it ends up doing is in your sort of home city deck, once you establish a deck like this, you see these cards here. They're called missions, expeditions, and then you have the interference. And they are infinite cards that deliver foreign units. In the case of the British Raj, they'll give you sepoys. In the case of the Russians, they'll give you Cossacks. And what happens is if you... yeah, so if you send one of these units here, what ends up happening is you get a immediate effect and a long-term effect, sort of like the madrasa attacks do, but one more thing that they do is basically actually increases the amount of units that these cards will actually deliver you. So not only are you rewarded with one specific bonus for picking a particular royal courtier at the royal court, but your cards will actually get stronger in the home city. So if you go with all Russians, for instance, you're basically tapping on an additional 6 Cossacks to every single one of these cards to make them much better. Or if you do a mix and match, it's not going to be as strong to do that. So you either need to buckle down with sort of like one ally or just, deal with whatever, basically. And that's pretty much how you do that. And one other thing I wanted to point out as well with the way the Middle East works, which is a bit different economically, is instead of having like a mill or a plantation to do their food and gold gathering in the late game, what they actually do here is they have this building called the Fountain, and the fountain itself will actually spawn berry bushes over time that you can gather from right around the base of the building.
I'm watching that thing there, and I was going to ask you what it was. So it spawns berry bushes.
Yep.
So how does that compare to farms, or do they not have farms?
It's kind of a fun concept. It's like mixing a farm with a mill, because it's a farm in the sense that it's a depletable resource, but
well, it's an oasis, right? Is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like desert oasis.
Yep, pretty much.
So do they not have farms?
Yeah, basically, for a majority of these Middle East civs, they use the fountain to either spawn a food-based bush, like the pomegranate here, or a money-based one like the poppies here. And for every Middle East civ, they have their own crops too. It's all unique. So basically, the Uzbeks will have plums for their food one, and they'll have cotton for their coin one. Saudis will have the date palms, of course, for their food, and then for gold they'll have coffee plants, and then for the Persians they have saffron as their gold base crop, and then they'll have, I believe, apricots for their food base ones. So it varies from each civ, but the concept is the same. And I believe for the Saudis, because of the way that they're designed, they actually have a oasis annex that they have to build on the side of the citadel instead of building it outwards, because Saudis is actually a really fun, interesting concept of a civ that I might actually show you here right now, because it's a little bit different than the other Middle East civs, basically. So we got Riyadh right here, and we'll load that in super quick. Saudi was basically took a concept that was already existing in the mod for another civ and basically made it a lot stronger, pretty much. So instead of having buildings, the Saudis actually build caravans to do all of their chores, pretty much, except for the oasis. The oasis you have to build right next to the citadel here, and that basically will do that berry bush spawning thing that the Fountains did for the Afghans, except that it has to be tethered to a town center, and it's also limited by a build limit as well, pretty much.
Is it spiritual fountain then, or is it not in some way?
What did you mention?
Okay, so you say it works like a fountain, but
Yeah.
it is attached to the town center. So is it therefore having to be attached to the town center makes it worse than a fountain.
Oh
Is there some
yeah,
way that
big time, yeah. And it has a build limit too, so it's a less optimal one. But from what I was told by the developers, they actually said that the spawn rate of the bushes is actually faster at the oasis than it is at a fountain, so there's a bit of a sort of rule that you can have less of them, but they're more efficient.
so it does have some advantages?
Yeah, because some of the people that were playtesting were like, why would we build this thing? It's literally a waste, because, we can only have so many of them, and we're sitting here waiting for the fruit bushes to come out, so what's going on? And they had to check on it. They said, oh yeah, these things are supposed to spawn faster.
So from a play balance point of view, it seems backwards. Like, the way I would have wanted to design things, I would say that I'd start with the oasis, and then like everyone gets oases in the Middle East that they have to put by the town center, and then one of the civs would have fountains they could build far away, so they have the cool thing that is elsewhere, and that would be their advantage. That seems like more interesting to me. And instead, they kind of did it in reverse.
Yeah, I kind of.
Anyway, that's my take.
I kind of think of that too. Now that I think about it, it's like, in theory, all these cities would have the oasis as their primary thing, and only the most advanced cities would have fountains in their city to be able to irrigate it.
Yeah, exactly, right. Is the oasis, the fountains would be this cool way of building the oasis away from your TC. How neat is that? Everyone's like, oh, this civ has a move away, But I still want to play Saudis because I have some other thing that I like, and that would be like, it's kind of like with Huns, for example, when I took away houses, from the Huns, because I thought that would make them fun. They always wanted to have a new thing be... Adding a restriction seems weird. But whatever, If they aren't me, so they don't have to play the way I do. But just my take on it is that it would have been smarter to go the opposite way. Or...
Yeah.
And then when you played the civ with the distant ones, you'd feel all special.
Right. Yeah, so this...
I'm guessing that the reason this way is because they first had the idea for fountains, and then when they were doing the Saudis, they said, oh, well, how can we make their fountains different? And they said, we'll attach it. They kind of worked from the top down,
Yeah, most definitely. Now, this is the thing that makes Saudis a bit different than everyone else, is they actually use caravans to do their stuff instead. So instead of having to build a forward base, they can actually just move their caravans around the map to train their units for them on the front lines. And that means, too, that the caravans can actually park up right underneath a town center and start training units down there, which is a lot different than what you're normally allowed to do in the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, caravans are cool, right? And the Saudis are the right guys to do the caravans. It sounds like they work a lot like the Age of Mythology Viking uh, wagons.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And there was
But that's
actually,
okay because
yeah,
stealing the idea from a different game is like how you make games better.
right.
I have no, whenever I see something stolen, I never say, "Oh, they stole it." It's like, "Oh, good, they're using the good idea in another game." Because that's how you make. Because if all our games had to be designed from scratch in like a some kind of bubble, then our games would never get better over time. We have to be able to borrow things from other ideas.
Yeah, and I think from your point about the Norse and Age of Mythology, the actually closest civ to that they added to this would actually be Grand Columbia, because Grand Columbia has a thing where your infantry and cavalry can build tents as sort of forward buildings. They can either build a standard tent as like a little mini house, they can build a tent barracks for all the infantry, and they can build a tent stable for the cavalry. And basically how it works is it's basically kind of like the normal building, but it's weaker and it lacks certain functionalities. Like you can't research upgrades there, you can just train units. So you can either build like a more sturdier barracks or stable, or you can have like a million weak little tents around the front lines to rush the enemies with.
I like the idea of the soldiers building them. That's cool.
Now that I think of it, I want to actually show the Uzbeks as well, because they have this other pretty interesting concept that's a bit different than the other Middle East civs. Persia's a little bit more geared towards the royal court, so it doesn't feel as unique, but definitely the Uzbeks have a really neat concept. So instead of just having, I should mention by the way that the Middle East doesn't have a livestock pen at all for their sort of animals. What they actually do instead is they have these things called nomads, which is a mobile unit that you can take with your explorer to help kill treasure guardians. But what they also do is they actually train herdables, and they can fan them as well, using some aura when the animal stands near them, where they fan faster. So they're kind of like a mobile livestock pen that basically helps you to fan your animals. So like when you see this little ring around the sheep, you know that it's actually going to get fatter a lot quicker while it's hanging out with the nomad, pretty much.
Hmm.
The thing that makes Uzbeks actually a bit different than the other civs is they actually have three different types of nomads. They have the Kyrgyz one, the Turkmen one, and then they have the third one here, the Karakapul one. And what they do, which most nomads don't do, is they actually can build structures where they sort of sacrifice themselves to become a building to help you out, pretty much. So in the case of the Kurgs one, they can become a special yurt tent over here. And what happens is when you build the yurt will actually attract the turkeys to the yurt to stand up right around it, just like the granaries work in the Definitive Edition game. So if you want to organize the hunts and have it so they actually, stay where you want them to, basically just put one of these yurts down, and then the hunts will just sort of go back to the building pretty much, and make
Okay.
the
Cool.
macro a lot less difficult for you. And now this is the most interesting one though. So there's another one too here for the Karakapal one. What he builds is something called a tam. Basically, all it is this mud structure house here, and when you build it, enemies can't build within a certain vicinity of it. So it basically limits your enemy's ability to build a forward base. So if you have these sort of on the periphery of your town center, then they literally can't even build a building there at all to attack you with. But there's the opposite with the Turkmens. The Turkmens, I think, is probably the most fascinating nomad that they ended up designing, because what he builds is he builds something called a Alaman. And what the Alamon does, it's one of the only buildings that you can build within the vicinity of an enemy town center, and you actually have to do. So maybe I might have to clean up some of this stuff with the truck or something, but I'll show you how it works.
Right? I'm watching. Wait, hey, that's not.
Yep.
That's not real.
Yeah. Yeah, basically whenever I'm doing this playtesting stuff for the mods or doing a tutorial or something, whenever the AI gets a little frisky, I just take out the monster truck and tell it just to calm down a bit, basically, and let me put the stuff where I want to. It's kind of a neat trick. So yeah, but if I leave that truck there, the AI will just sort of focus on that and actually let me build what I want to build over here, which is the Alamon, which is a pretty interesting concept for AoE3, since I don't think we've really seen any of the mods ever try to design something like this. Basically, how an Alamon works is you have to be within so much distance of the town center directly, and what you end up doing is you have to locate it, obviously, and get within so much distance of it. I think right now I just have to clean up, get a little bit closer to it, which is interesting, but okay, let me do that. Yeah, it's a bit tricky sometimes figuring out how close I have to actually build the thing to meet the requirements. So, yeah, I can actually build it right there, but obviously the AI is going to do it. But so I'm going to try a little bit. I'm actually going to restart this and do it a very particular way. I have sort of a trick to getting the Alamons to work with the AIs, because the AIs are way too aggressive, I think, sometimes to put these down. But they definitely work a lot better against human players that aren't so fast and have proficient macros. So what I usually do with this one is I put my Madrasa down first. And then I turn it off like that so the AI doesn't get the advantage of speed always wins. So now he's back to normal speed now. So I can actually get away with putting stuff around his town center without him sort of swatting back at me, basically. So basically, let me get these Turkmen over there real quick. Thankfully, won't have all those buildings and units in the way trying to resist this time. And the AI, as a result, will suffer pretty badly. Let's run over there. And this building, by the way, took multiple beta versions for it to even work, by the way. So when I saw this thing working last week, I was like really impressed. Like, they finally figured out how to get this thing working, because it was like the most interesting one. So let's put one up over here. So this is an Alamon right in this spot. And what they do is they're the only building besides a few other ones in the game where you're actually allowed to build them near the enemy's town center. And what they do is, first of all, they act as sort of like a tower that will actually shoot at the enemy units and harass them directly. And then on top of that, they train these tribal leaders here, the Alamania, which are actually a Gaia unit that will actually spawn around the base of the tower and attack everybody, including you. So the thing I found super fascinating about this thing was it was literally the idea of the Tartarian Gate from Age of Mythology, but transferred to the Uzbeks, which I thought was quite impressive.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Like I said, mixing and matching is how you get good, get games that can be stronger. So yeah, those are interesting looking towers too, with the wall around their bases.
Yep, thankfully in this game, Wars of Liberty set it up so your buildings can attack each other. By default in AoE3, your buildings can't shoot at each other, but AoE3 set it up so that they could. So in this case, if you do have somebody send up all these Alamons around your TC, you can actually use your TC to try to fight back from it, which is really important. Trying to think if there's... Oh yeah, there was one more thing I was going to show you as well, now that we're done with sort of this Middle East stuff. I'm going to have to pull it up super duper quick and find it in my system. And I'll probably have to share the thing with you again. Let me see. It's always fun trying to locate because it's in a different directory, but up almost there. Here we go. Oh yeah, and I can turn the audio off as well, probably. There we go with that. Wait a second, let me go back to this. Standard game, Portuguese. I'll just do Portuguese, or yeah, I could just do Portuguese, I guess, or maybe Turks. I don't know. I'll do Portuguese. All right, so this is actually something related to Age of Empires 2, actually. So it's a bit related to AoE 3, just a little bit different. I gotta share the thing with you first, though, so you can see it.
I need to close the stream, or no? I don't.
Yep, do you see it now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So this is a mod called Age of Empires 2 Portuguese Civ mod that actually ended up adding features from Age of Empires 3 into AoE 2 by adding a fifth age called the Renaissance Age, where you sort of go from the Imperial Age of trebuchets and your Imperial upgrades into sort of artillery, gunpowder units, and all sorts of stuff, basically. So if I show you super quick how that works, if we look at the
gunpowder units in the Imperial Age, that was so I guess we overlap with what this is doing.
Yeah, and funny enough, the person that worked on this also worked on the Wars of Liberty team, so I see in some ways he paralleled it a bit with how Wars of Liberty took World War I and sort of planted it into AoE 3. What Daniel Pereira did with Portuguese Civ mod was sort of implant AoE 3 into AoE 2 at the end. Sort of taking the same idea a bit, just for different concepts, pretty much. Probably the quickest way to figure out what this mod has is actually just looking at the tech tree here. So, for instance, your Arbalest, once you go to Renaissance Age, become the Imperial one, which is a much nicer looking one, basically. Your hand cannons become the Arquebusier, and then you get some new units too, like the Caliverman here, which is a new type of gunpowder unit that can counter other gunpowder units more effectively, as well as the Dragoon, which is, of course, sort of like a conquistador that everybody can train, which is quite nice. You also got the Musketeer here, which is a gunpowder unit that you actually get to train out of the barracks. So if you have a bunch of barracks lying around, don't worry, you can get a ranged soldier out there as well, in the form of the musket. As well as, the Paladin becomes the Cuirassier, just like in AoE 3 for the French, so that takes a bit of an evolution. And then as far as Navy is concerned, your Galleon becomes the Frigate here, which is the last upgrade. You can build the Sloop. Bomb Catch is like the last Cannon Galleon upgrade. And then you get the Ship of the Line, which is the one that actually has the broadside attack on it, which is quite good. And then if you move over to the side here, then you sort of see what makes Portuguese Civ mod a bit different. So, in addition to the normal concepts, sort of, you also have experience added as a resource to this mod to make it a little bit like Age of Empires 3. And with experience, you can actually go to this building called the Trade Workshop, which does exist in the game. But this mod actually ended up doing something with it where you can either recruit certain soldiers, like a sapper to siege. You got sort of the Lancer here to counteract archers. The Crusader is sort of a solid swordsman you can use. Mounted crossbow. These all cost just experience. And you get experience by basically, I believe, training units. Or actually, rather, by building buildings and training units. So, sort of the same way you would do it in Age of Empires 3 with the bounty. And this is sort of like an exterior system you can use to basically get stuff onto the field quickly. But of course, if you want to spend gold, you also have the tavern here. Just like you would have in Age of Empires 3 with the saloon, to be able to recruit mercenaries, which does vary from civ to civ. Like if you go to the, if we go all the way back over to the side here, we could look at maybe, say, the Berbers, the Moors, perhaps. And their set of mercenaries is actually going to be totally different from what the Europeans have. So if you look at their mercenaries, you got other ones, like you got the Mahout Lancer, you got Swordsman here, you got the Nafatun, which is a Grenadier, Cannon Mahout, basically the Siege Elephant from AoE 3, Archer of the Eyes, Chakrams, Hashashin, which is an assassin. Then you have the Bedouin Raider, which is just a horse-based scimitar throwing cav, kind of like the Saracens one, but on a horse, basically. And then over here you got actual artillery. You got field guns, which is sort of your falconet, so it's good against units. Your culverin is good at countering other siege weapons, just like they work in AoE 3. Multi-barrel gun, so it's sort of like a early Renaissance type machine gun that fires multiple shots. And then you have the howitzer, of course, which is sort of your long-range siege-based cannon. Whilst the bombard cannon itself sort of falls out of favor and goes obsolete to all these other ones, basically once you can access them. And then I guess sort of the last thing I would say is kind of a bit new, but maybe not, is one other feature from Age of Empires 3, which is the banks. So you can actually construct the Dutch banks with each civ to actually trickle you a bit of gold. So even if you don't have any trade partners at all, or you're not able to salvage somebody's market that you defeat and start trading with that thing, you can at least build a few banks to trickle you some gold out as well. And then the last sort of thing that the mod did that's really cool is there's actually wonder powers. So when you construct a wonder in Portuguese Civ mod, it actually does something. It has a profound effect that will affect the Civ pretty greatly as long as it's active. So for the way that the Moors work is, if they build a wonder, their monks will regenerate their faith instantly, which means that they can convert infinitely as many times as you can click onto stuff, which is really scary when you think about
it. So what I'm seeing here is, like, when you play Age of Empires, the game is often determined. The game can be determined in Feudal Age. Usually it's settled. Sometime in Castle Age it becomes clear who's going to win. It can go to Imperial Age. Those are the most awesome epic things. But it seems that the Renaissance Age would be the rarest age to get to, because it probably in Imperial or Castle or maybe even Feudal, it's already decided. So you have all these awesome things that don't get played in that often.
Yeah, and yeah, and it definitely.
Because, I mean, that's just how it is. I'm not. It's like every time we were playtesting, we went to, one of the reasons we like to playtest with 8-player games at Ensemble was to make it likelier that a bunch of us would reach the Imperial Age and we test those units out. Because if it's one-on-one, it does not hit Imperial every game. Someone's resigning in Castle, or the other guy hits Imperial, and the other guy says, "Oh man, I'm 5 minutes from Imperial, and he's going to kill me," and they give up, and that's fine, because the game needs to have the rush as well as the boom. So how often do people get to play all these cool things in the Renaissance Age?
Oh yeah, so I think what ends up happening is, as a result, most people just focus on economic when they're playing this mod because they actually want to see the late game stuff. You have some people that play more aggressively, because one other thing that this mod does is it actually has a secondary unique unit called a support unit, like in this case is the Imam, but it could also be, in the case of, I don't know, the Koreans, it could be the Hwacha, or the rocket cart that the Koreans have. Yeah, pretty much. You can either play it normally, take advantage of the trade workshop and the tavern to sort of just give you some more options that you normally wouldn't have, or you can decide to boom and go to Renaissance Age and fight it out with some really cool late game stuff. And then the thing you always have to keep in mind is you got civs that really don't have a good Renaissance Age. Like, for instance, Aztecs, for instance, are one of the Mesoamericans, so what they end up having to do is try to beat people out in the earlier ages, because obviously they can't access any of those new Renaissance Age stuff, so it's actually in their best interest to try to wipe you out sooner. pretty much. And they can basically do that because they actually have their own set of mercenaries as well that they can make. So they can make blowgunners, they got mace prowlers, lance prowlers, arrow knights, and kamyuks.
So yeah, those are going to get used, you know.
Yeah. And they even get the thunder gun, basically just mercenary bombard cannons, since they normally can't make those.
Wow. I think it would have been tough for this is the Aztecs?
Yeah, this is the Aztecs, their mercenary roster.
To master cannons. I mean, I have them as a mercenary thing, as you know, from the home city, for the Native Americans. I guess I would have given the Aztecs something different instead of gunpowder. The whole thing about the Aztecs, for me, was to try to make a civ with no horses and no gunpowder, and see if I could make it viable. And I think I pulled it off.
Yeah, you did great with them in AoE 3.
They're violating my internally set boundary, and maybe I shouldn't be all annoyed by that because it was my boundary, not theirs. But it does bother me a little bit because if I was going to give them gunpowder, I probably would have gone back and given them petards. That's the Aztecs could steal gunpowder and then blow themselves up. Seems like blowing themselves up is the Aztec thing,
Oh yeah. Yep, and I think the concept of the thunder gun was actually something that Daniel borrowed from Wars of Liberty, because there was another Native American civ that's actually in, I believe, Portuguese civ mod 2, which is the Tupi civ from the Brazilian Amazon. And what one of their unique units was in Wars of Liberty was they had unit called the Thunder Gun, or the Thunder Cannon, and basically how it worked was it's basically this cannon that the Tupi stole from the Brazilians or one of the Europeans going through the Amazon, and the way they operated is basically it's this big imposing cannon, but after you shoot it, the cannon literally collapses and falls apart because the natives basically don't know how to operate it or how to maintain it, so after they shoot it one time, it just dies instantly.
That actually happens surprisingly often for the actual Europeans themselves. So yeah, it makes sense. No, I love that. A one-shot cannon is a great idea. Or even a cannon that shoots multiple times, but it deteriorates over time. It has like a 25 chance of blowing up each time.
They took the same concept with the Bulgarians in the Wars of Liberty as well, because instead of it being necessarily an issue of maintenance, they use a wooden-based cannon called the cherry gun, made out of cherry wood, and basically after they shoot the cannon one time, it literally just blows up and you can't use it. So instead of having these big, giant, imposing cannons, the Bulgarians just spam a bunch of little mini cherry guns that are very cheap. They only cost a bit of food and wood, and mass them up and charge them at the enemy in huge numbers.
Well, I gotta say, one of the things that people praised about the Iroquois when I first introduced them, and I guess they're now the Haudenosaunee, but those natives, is they said, we like the Iroquois because you have a bunch of crappy little siege engines that don't last long, but you just swarm the enemy with them. And that sounds like the same thing. People like cheap, replaceable units. They're in a sense more fun than giant, super powerful units because it's not a disaster when you lose them.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. So, wait a second. We've been at it for about an hour now for this episode. Insane.
Yeah. I guess we're done. I hope to see you again somewhere, and take care. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, thank you. We'll do episode 3 and 4 the next time.
I thought this was episode 3 and 4, is it not?
No, we just sort of, I think, episode
1 and 2.
2.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Okay, take care.
Yep, bye.
Bye.